Hello, everyone. Welcome to our virtual coffee talk series today. So, our guest is today Jonathan. So, thank you for joining me today and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So, as usual, I will be just asking questions that I would probably ask in person meeting, although we had one. So, but for the audience, I will be pretending like we've never met. So, thanks again. So, how are you? How things are
Good.
going there?
Yeah, good. Here in California, it is actually coffee time ish. Probably gonna have my second one after this call. Uh, but yeah, doing well. How are you?
Cool. I'm doing well. Late in here, but hopefully I will be catching up you soon there. Hopefully
Cool.
in the summer. But other than that, just busy and just like you, as I imagine. So I think that would be great if we start by learning more about you. You know, a brief intro before talking about what you are doing right now. Just a brief background, whatever you would like to share with me.
Yeah. Let's see. I I've always been in the world of developers. On the product side, on the developer relations side, I have a CS degree and business degree, and I've always been fascinated by building developer platforms. I've worked on everything from your classic APIs to mobile, to operating systems and infrastructure. But for the last 10 years, I've been focusing on IoT developers. I've had a really fun career and learned a lot working at companies like Google and Nest, building connected wireless devices, companies like Particle, where I learned a lot about cellular and 5G and manufacturing. Had a couple stints along the way, but I would say that I'm a product guy focusing on developers, and that's my short story.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. And how was like working at those companies? I guess you worked quite some time at Google, right? If I'm not wrong. So
Yeah.
how would you remember those days? You know, just in a few sentences, what you have digged in and what you have learned, those kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. General Google was for me kind of my growing up phase as a product person. Um, I mean, the people I worked around, some legendary engineers and product leaders, and it really taught me to think about products at a different scale. Um, so, for example, I worked on Android for a while, and uh, my team was on the SDKs for Android. So, Google engineers building apps for the Google Play Store, as well as third-party developers, were using our SDKs, and it was used by a billion people. Like, not the developers themselves, or the products that was working on it. So, you learn a lot about how to think about systems and how to not just build lowest common denominator, but think about the entire long tail. And so that was an amazing experience. But I think similarly, my time at Nest, I joined just after the acquisition. They were looking for someone who knew developers. They didn't have a lot before. They had a great product, but they also looking for someone in open source. And so I came in, and I call my time at Nest my PhD in IoT, because I learned so much in just the 2 years I was there, about IoT, about networking, about hardware, around manufacturing, around consumer behavior. And I joke because about 6 months of the job, I found out that half the engineers on my team actually had PhDs, and
Yeah,
that our tech lead got a lifetime achievement award for building part of the internet, kind of thing. So here I was, very green to the space, but I really valued that opportunity to work with some amazing people.
sounds great. And I can only imagine that that was hard. Although it sounds fun. Then you joined Particle. I guess it was earlier days, right? For Particle, not as
Yep.
of today that we know
Yeah,
Particle.
yeah, and I joined as one of the first PMs. I think I was the first PM.
Mhm.
They had the successful Wi-Fi product. They had just recently launched their first cellular product, and yeah, it was early days, and it
Yeah,
was interesting at time to join that company too, because they were originally this maker product. It made it really accessible and easy for Wi-Fi, because before Particle existed, just no hobbyist or even early stage startup had access to low cost Wi-Fi connectivity, and all the
right.
problems that come up with, creating a secure and reliable networking stack, understanding Wi-Fi security, connecting from a consumer's Wi-Fi network to a cloud and somewhere else. And so they really solved that problem. And they were anchored in the hobbyist space and early stage startups. But they had a shift at that time of selling to enterprise, especially when they launched cellular, which made a lot more sense for commercial applications, for industrial applications. And so I got to be there while they were developing this new kind of DNA within the company to both help enable and service the maker community, but also enter in this commercial enterprise space. So that was really fun.
Yeah, I remember also as a user, as a developer, as you mentioned, for quite some time ago with those devices. That was fun. For the first time, you were able to update the code over the air. It was easy to understand, write the code. I remember well. But going to the main topic, I can guess as a founder, but what was the reason or several reasons that you decided to go with your own thing, something from scratch? As I said, I have some feelings about that, but what would you tell to the people who is not from startup space, that just trying to learn more and listening and learning through our chat? And what would you share? How did you decide to start?
Yeah, as sort of general advice for anyone thinking about a product, I would say caveat. My experience is
Yes.
probably similar to yours because we're both product-oriented
Right.
founders, but not everyone has the same sort of drive about what brings them to creating a startup. But this is really, I think, a lot of other product-oriented founders I've met. There's a problem that you've been thinking about over time, and it just gnaws at you. You're like, why isn't someone solving it? And you see another startup that launches, and they're claiming to solve this problem, but they're not even solving the hard parts. And why are they going to market like that? To the point where it's almost like a coffee pot overboiling. So, coffee
Right.
thing. And you just have to do it. You're so compelled to solve this problem, and you're like asking the world, why isn't someone doing it? That basically draws you to doing it yourself. And the other thing is, there's several problems like that you probably think about, or as someone at a company and seeing opportunities. The one that I picked, and I think every founder should pick, is the one you think you'd be able to do for the next 5 to 10 years of your life. And what does the first 3 years challenge look like, and then the next 5 years, and then another 5 years after that? If you can step back and say, this is the problem that's overboiling in my soul, and I can do this for the next 10 years, then you probably should go after that, because there's a high likelihood that you have the motivation to make it through that journey.
Right. I also liked one sentence you mentioned. You see other companies tries to solve, but you don't believe they actually solve. I found one part that also matches with me, that part especially.
Awesome.
So there's nice to hear. So how things went well at early stages? I mean, you decided, as I said, I can only guess because you have an idea and you don't know the rest. You just have to start. So how that went for you, finding people? I'm not going to cover fundraising. It's out of the topic, I guess. But yeah, it's another topic maybe. So yeah, just what do you remember from your early days?
Yeah, I think as a product manager, a lot of what you're doing is either coming up with new product opportunities within an organization, or someone else at the executive level is like, hey, there's a market opportunity to go after that. So you're always asking the question already, or at least I was, is this a good idea? And I think that's a key muscle that I have that I actually encourage a lot of people to develop even before they think about starting a company. That's to ask people, ask companies, ask your friends, because the cost to ask somebody their opinion is close to zero. Maybe it's coffee in Oakland. Also, it's not worth a whole lot, so you should probably ask a lot of people. And so, my best suggestion there is, if you have an idea but maybe you don't know it's formed, figure out who you can ask and build a sort of consensus around this is a problem or not. And so, classic product management is they have a term called product discovery or customer discovery, where you say, okay, I'm building a widget. This widget is to make coffee. We'll keep on with this theme. And so you should find out from people who may know enough about coffee, whether it's coffee drinkers, so you ask your friends who love coffee. Maybe people in the coffee bean manufacturing space, ask them about coffee and the process of making coffee. Maybe there's companies who would be potential customers, like the component manufacturers that go into coffee machines. And ask as many people as you can to build out this sort of thesis around the problem and the solution you're thinking about. Because I guarantee whatever idea you have, there's a kernel in there, but the actual solution might be different by the time you exit that process. And maybe you have some intuition because you've been making coffee machines your entire life for someone else, but still that additional information, that sort of customer discovery is super critical. And even for my own journey, I had one idea for the company, and literally 1% of that original idea is what I'm working on now. And it's a whole, obviously business and a different track, but I learned through talking to people what is the real problem that they would want to be solved with a company like what we're building. And so there's actually a great book. I can't remember the exact title, but it has a concept of prototyping. Because we talk a lot about in software and in tech prototyping. But the idea behind prototyping is, can you gather information before you even have a demo, before you even have a product? So it's the prototyping, but before that. And the idea is, can you ask someone, if this existed, would it solve a problem? If this existed, would you pay for it? How much? And you'd be surprised how much information you can learn through this sort of prototyping process by just asking. So that's one my big tip.
Yeah, I think it also applies for almost everything: fundraising, finding customers, developing the features of the product. We just have to ask before we actually ask, to prevent the cost of the time and the finance, maybe. So yeah, thanks for sharing your experience. So then you build things, and it turns out it's being used by people. So how you feel now? How things are going for you? Where do you feel?
There's all these highs and lows of running a startup, as you of course know. When you have the first time the thing works, like your baby's first steps, that's exciting. But there's nothing comparable to your first user. Whether it's a Git clone and they're running your open source code for the first time and they file an issue, you're thrilled. Or they're trying your service and they crash your server because you didn't do enough of a testing beforehand. That's thrilling. And then when they're actually using your product in their solution for the first time, each is another kind of high as a founder. And so we're always seeking that. And I look back to what we've done so far and look forward to the next big milestone. But yeah, it's the thing is, in between those, it's really tough. And if we're talking about the founder journey, there's a lot of lows in between. But it's just part of the adventure, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And how would you describe what you do in the most simple way? I know it's the hardest question for us, since we're in a deep tech space, at least in our landscape. So just think about the regular developers, because our communities consist of developers. How would you describe your startup, what you solve today?
Yeah, I've been working on this pitch because I've been in this similar space for 10 years now, to explain to my parents.
Oh, that's hard.
It's not quite there, but
yeah,
the way I describe it to them is we provide services to help manufacturers connect and secure their devices so they can better operate and manage those devices. Sometimes I use the word machines, sometimes I use the word factories, but the category we're in is known as device management. So if you're building a scooter or a factory equipment or an oil refinery or a consumer light bulb, that's a device. That device has software, and that software talks to the internet. And all the pieces of that, like we understand as developers, but the complexities of doing that reliably on a particular device that's not a cell phone or a server has a whole class of problems that we're effectively trying to solve for the broader IoT community. And we're laser focused on this device management space. And we can go into kind of how that changes, but you asked for a short answer. I gave you 2 descriptions. Yeah. Hopefully that was helpful.
Sure, of course. I think that was shorter than I expected, actually, because I know what you do. So there's also a good lesson to me. When I'm going to explain something later, I will be trying to use that simplicity.
Yeah. You gave when we had coffee back in California. I feel like you had at least one good short version of something like Segment. What Segment did for consumer data, customer data, you're thinking about that for IoT. Yeah, that really resonated with me.
Exactly. It always works. It's a secret, but anyway, it always works. So, what should we expect from you, your team, your company in the next, let's say, a year, 2 years? I'm not going to say classical 5 years. So maybe 6 months. What are we going to hear as a developer community?
Yeah. So maybe take a quick step back of what our product is real quick, because I talked about device makers, people who manufacture hardware, and I have always props at hand. Like this is one type of hardware. This is a Wi-Fi device, and this is the chip that would go inside, let's say, a Wi-Fi light bulb. Well, we don't make this. We're a pure software company, but we provide the software to the SDKs that run on these devices, then connect and manage the connectivity and security and software updates through our platform. And so each time we add a new connectivity, because there's a lot of forms of connectivity in IoT, it expands the kind of use cases we can do. So today we support Wi-Fi. We actually do a lot with cellular. And so if you think about tracking goods or micromobility like scooters, that's where we also provide a lot of unique functionality. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. Whether it's a Wi-Fi light bulb or a scooter, we're establishing the connection, the security, the device health, like observability and things like that. And so one area that we're investing more is adding more of these forms of connectivity. And so when we go to conference, we show Wi-Fi, we show cellular, we actually show Ethernet, which is very important for industrial and connected buildings. But we're investing heavily in a new radio technology, newish radio technology called Thread. And it's actually a mesh networking technology. So you asked about the next 6 months. We just demoed mesh networking using Golioth and managing those devices, collecting all the sensor data on wireless mesh. And the funny thing, the irony is that's the same technology I worked on at Nest. And so it's being brought out to more mainstream, more companies are adopting it. And just like we can help companies who want to build, let's say, industrial or consumer, Thread adds a new layer of capabilities. So that's a new class of devices that we're adding to our platform. And there's a whole lot of stuff we have to go do to make it super reliable and unlock all the capabilities of our platform. But that's our current big focus.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And for those who don't know, Jonathan and his team focus on devices, software that runs on devices. Our focus is the data that those devices produce thanks to their software. So I think that will be one of the fastest way to describe. So we are also super interested in for those kind of features in next 6 months because there are tons of devices, tons of sensors, values, and the demand is increasing every day. Even since our last chat in person, we've noticed multiple requests for different platforms, different integrations. It's endless journey. Yeah. Because I always believe that devices are like human population. They just produce data, like Instagram, like Facebook.
Yep.
But actually, we don't see the data. So we will be also focusing on that part a lot, hopefully together at some point. So other than that, what are the challenges? Let's also talk a bit about that. I know device is hard. I know software is hard. Everything is hard. Startup is hard. Being founder is hard. But what are the current challenges that you are trying to solve today or these days?
Yeah, I mean, on the technology side, we can talk for a long time.
Right.
Especially when it comes to IoT. There's a joke in the industry that the S in IoT stands for security because there is no S in IoT.
Yeah.
And that's always the challenge of doing what we do and making security the default. I think that's a deeply technical problem. We always built that in. And each time we add a new capability to our platform, it means we have to make sure that the security model works, that we can make that easy for manufacturing. I think that's going to be an ongoing technical challenge for us.
Sure.
I would say as a company and as a startup in 2022, it's hiring, actually. Growing the team has been the single most time involved. Being able to be competitive from a compensation and ensuring that our employees are also happy. this market is wild. Like, I don't know what you're seeing in Turkey and in other parts of the world, but like in the US, it was just like a bloodbath for startups. And we've been having great success. We have a great team. We're very happy. But, you know, as we want to grow, like, okay, how are we going to double our team, triple our team? And like, what do we have to do in order to stay competitive? Because this market is just, it's great for employees. So congratulations, everyone looking for a job. It's been really tough on startups and founders who are trying to.
It's a constant pain, especially for me. I think we will always have that pain. You know, the pain of the growth, finding people. Finding is also not the biggest challenge. You know, being able to on the same path, same idea. You know, finding someone who likes what you do and someone that you can run for a long time, because we are also a startup, right? It's another challenge. We cannot just act like Microsoft or other companies. So it's a thing that we try to solve, but no one talks about that. At least we understand each other, which is nice. So for me, I cannot solve that problem. I only wish best like to myself and the team, and wait and try to grow, and you know, fix the problems, you know, as fast as I can. So we will see. But I think it's the same in the entire world these days.
Yeah.
I think maybe because we are in the post-COVID era, I don't know. Maybe I've been telling that even fundraising and even developing product is sometimes easier than hiring people. Yeah. I don't know what you think about that.
100%. Between me and our CTO, we've probably spent more time in the hiring process, you know, recruiting, going through profiles, interviewing, than we probably spent either writing code or writing specs. Maybe I'm over exaggerating, but it feels like that is the case.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, good luck also to you and your team for that. So yeah, that's cool. Also, just probably the last question from me about the business part, about in IoT landscape. Personally, I've been observing that it's also one of the hardest market when you think about the business, not the technical challenges, because every landscape is, you know, challenging. But when you look at the IoT, there have been some hypes and lows, you know, highs and lows, hypes, everything.
Yep.
I think, what do you think about that? I think we are also trying to solve that problem as well, especially when you look at the fundraising part, you know, talking to investors and maybe large corporations. I mean, the, you know, customer part. They've seen a lot the same terminologies, same sentences, same words, but we are trying to do something different. What do you think about that? This is my opinion, by the way.
Yeah. There's it's been interesting because the term IoT and I would say the IoT industry actually has been around since the 70s or earlier, and it was called machine to machine, right? These humongous factories, and these humongous factories were actually collecting sensor data on conveyor belts and compressors and sending that to a local server. It just wasn't. There's no internet. It was just the internet, right? And over the last 50 years, investments in IoT continue to go up because what is hard, I think the noise came from consumer. The consumer market with the Philips Hue and the Nest thermostat created this. Oh, there's, you know, the B2C is such a huge opportunity. Everything is going to be IoT, and therefore all this revenue is going to come from the consumer, which actually overshadowed where the actual investments are. Connected city, connected building, connected factory, connected retail. Again, those have been continuing to grow steadily over the last 50 years, and we're even seeing it increasing in terms of areas of investment. Like return to work was a great boom for lots of sensor manufacturers because they're trying to make it safer for people to come in, air quality monitoring, all these things, right? So it's not slowing down; it's speeding up. The consumer market, I think, created this hype cycle, and I have some scars from working consumer that I think for us, like as consumers ourselves, we can see the smart home market and lights, bulbs, and the thermostats, but like that actually is not exploding. I think there is a second wave there, but overall, when I step back and think about my time in IoT space and what I talk to companies who are looking to get into the industry, you know, to do digital transformation or investors, the market's smarter, because what we saw in 2015 and then 2017, like when I was at Particle working with traditional manufacturers who are trying to add connectivity to their products, they were figuring out for the first time. And then a couple of them were the second times, like, oh, I was at a previous company. We tried to add Wi-Fi to our HVAC system. It failed, but now I'm at a new company, and actually I learned a lot of lessons. Well, I think there's a lot more of those experienced practitioners that are actually building up better business use cases. It's like, actually, if we add connectivity to our product here, we can do predictive maintenance there. And this could yield, reduction of truck rolls and increases in subscription revenues, where that wasn't the case, I would say, 5 years ago. I think the buyer is actually more educated. And so the continued investment in connected devices and just more awareness of what works, what doesn't. I think it's a really good time to be in IoT.
Right.
And even consumer, which I've been kind of burnt a couple times working in consumer, is about to have its also, I think, third wave. There's a consortium called the Connectivity Standards Alliance, CSA. I always forget it. Where Apple, Google, Amazon, and a bunch of other companies are saying, hey, you know what? Let's agree on standardization finally for the smart home. And I think there's a huge opportunity for companies who are building devices, as well as trying to make sense of all those consumer data to have new opportunities. So I'm excited. I think it's a great time. I only see upside for companies like Qubitro and Golioth, and look forward to seeing it grow even further.
Yeah, I think the same. I think great time to be in this landscape, especially after all those experiences. I always mention the same era, 2015, 2018, at most 19. Several things tried, but failed also. So we had a chance to observe, which is great. So I'm also very positive about the market. Finally, as you mentioned, the market is trained. I think that was the most important thing. That's cool. So as you know, I and my team and our customers are also waiting our integration, hopefully soon.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we want to tease up the integration.
Yes, of course. For people who follow, your company, they probably have seen several of them. Also, we offer several integrations, but I think what's cool about this thing is going to be we literally combine each other. I mean, it's not like device example with Qubitro. It's a complete example at large scale. And what I mean with large scale is not 5 devices, 10 devices, because like you spend your time in security, we also spend our entire time in Qubitro for scalability, as we discussed with you. So I think it will be more like not just visualizing data or not just accessing data. It will create an opportunity to observe devices and the data in real time. I don't like using term at scale too much, but in this case, I will be using because it's our goal, right? Let's say you have 10,000 devices in factory or deployed in different locations. Without dealing with both infrastructure and device security, I think it will be a real thing, and I think we are close there.
Yeah, and you talk about scale a lot because it's crazy. We talk about big data from IoT. Well, actually, the data from your products tends to be small compared to everything else about the device, right? So, for example, we have the ability to take device health, right? So, device logs, device metrics. Well, that could be 10x the amount of data coming off of the device compared to what you might be showing in an app. So the sensor data is small. And so when you have these large scale deployments, and we talked about mesh earlier, imagine having 1,000 node mesh, right? There's just so much data that a hardware manufacturer would have no idea how to deal with that data, especially if they just want a little bit of the kernel, right? Like the insight or the summary. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about the integration. We have some people already trying it out within the Qubitro Golioth community. So I think we can maybe point people to where they can learn more about it. And we're excited to launching it soon.
Sure. We also have several updates coming. And some of them also applies for our integrations, like dynamic data formatting,
awesome.
Yeah. Some things, as you mentioned, I've been observing, and I don't think none of the other companies were able to do as I imagined. So we are getting there. So yeah, I think these are the questions from me for today, and I hope it was helpful to the community who watched today, our chat. And thank you for your time again. Second time, online and in person, and I'm looking forward to third one, hopefully
Yes.
sooner.
Well, thank you for having me. Everyone who's
Sure.
watching the live stream, thank you for listening. I will plug Golioth.io, free to sign up, grab some hardware. You can even try it out without hardware. And of course, I look forward to launching the Qubitro integration sometime soon.
Same for me, and have a great day.
All right,
Bye.
take care. Bye.